Welcome once again, everyone, to Mary's School of Prophecy. I'm your host, William Tapley, also known as the third eagle of the apocalypse and the co-prophet of these end times. And I have a very unusual program for you today because I am turning over the microphone to one of our favorite supporters, and that would be Paula. Paula has been a big help to me in the past, so I finally decided that I would let her steal the show. And I'm sure she will do a wonderful job because she's often helped me out on saying the Rosary and also on various decodes. So I'm going to call her in. But first I want to go through the housekeeping. I thought I took care of my throat before the program, but I don't think I did. But it's a good thing because I don't have to do most of the talking today. For those of you who are new to the program, there's my name and address, William Tapley, Post Office Box 291, Osage, Iowa, 50461. And while I am dialing Paul, I think I will put the title of this program on the screen so you won't have to watch me dialing.
Hello?
Hello, Paula. You're coming in loud and clear.
Oh, good.
Okay.
So,
okay, go ahead.
Okay, so you want me to just begin, right?
Well, okay. And now I put the first slide on the screen, which is the title. And did you want to have any comment on that? And after we...
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, I think the version that I had bought on eBay, because I didn't know I could get it through a publisher, Clooney Media now publishes the book. The copy that I had gotten was copyrighted 1956, and but in fact, the author had originally published it in 1928.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that long ago. I see.
Yeah.
So actually, it's in the public domain.
Well, I'm not. No, it's gone from publisher to publisher.
Well, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. It's.
Well, wouldn't it have to be past 2028?
Well,
Wouldn't it have to be past 100 years?
No. It has to do when the author died.
Oh, okay. Well, he died in 19. Well, I have some notes here. He died in 19. Well, I had it. I'll dig it up.
Okay.
1964 or something like that.
Okay, so that's. I would say that it's still under copyright because I think it's 50 years from the time he dies. So 50 years so that's pretty close. Anyway, we're not trying to.
Oh, he died. Let's see. Well, I had it somewhere. I'll dig it up again.
Okay. Well, we're not trying to steal his copyright anyway, so it doesn't matter.
No, we're not. We got permission.
Sure, right. Okay. Well, yep. I'll go ahead and put the first. You can start right in, Paula. And I'll put the first.
Do you want to indicate? Did you already explain about it being in the description box? The publisher.
No, go ahead.
Well, the publisher that gave permission for me to read this on air had the condition that we include their publication link, and it's in the description box, and you can order the Mr. Blue novel through them.
Oh, okay.
And they're quite a wonderful publisher because their motto is promote the tradition, preserve the past, and on their website, they say that their goal is to preserve memory and to strengthen the understanding and faith of all interested in the Catholic Church.
Oh, good.
And so what they try to do is preserve Catholic books that may have gone by the wayside. It says, primarily our books are republications of important works in danger of becoming or are neglected or lost. We also publish new works that develop fresh insights and applications.
No, they certainly have a worthwhile goal. I would support that.
Yeah, and so they were very nice to let us do this.
Okay.
So I'll read my introduction before I get into reading from the novel.
So do you want me to put your first?
So you can stay on for a minute.
Okay. Go ahead.
When I'm finished with the introduction, then we can go ahead with the slides.
Okay.
When I first was suggesting this program to Mr. Tapley, I asked if he had ever read the 1928 novel Mr. Blue by Miles Connolly. It was required reading at my Catholic high school back in the day. If viewers are unfamiliar with the book, it follows the author's fictional encounters with a mystifying figure named Mr. Blue, who seems to be some kind of an urban St. Francis of Assisi, who came into wealth, spent or shared all of it, deliberately entering into poverty, and who had grandiose ideas about following Christ's example of self-giving love. One brainchild of Mr. Blue was a movie he imagined and hoped would be called The Last Christian, the synopsis of which he relayed to the author in an early chapter of the novel. The author, Miles Connolly, was born in the late 1800s. In 1928, at age 27, he wrote Mr. Blue. It was originally published by Macmillan Company, then picked up by Ignatius Press years later, and is now published by Clooney Media, whose motto is Promote the Tradition, Preserve the Past. Connolly and his wife were devout Roman Catholics. He wrote a handful of Catholic parable novels and was also a Hollywood writer and producer of over 40 films. However, in spite of his steady and respectable film career, the novel Mr. Blue remained his most lasting legacy. Anyone who has ever read the novel never forgets the description of Blue's imaginary movie script.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Paula. Okay, well, I think you can start, and when you're done, we can review the chat in case anyone has a comment or has further interest in the book, Mr. Blue. So go right ahead, Paula.
Okay, thank you. The Last Christian. An extract from the 1928 novel Mr. Blue by Miles Connolly. Mr. Blue began narrating his idea for a movie script he would call The Last Christian. The last known Christian had been put to death. He had been found living in the lower level of an abandoned mine in South Africa. He was ferreted out and brought to trial. He had professed Christ. There was no tumult or clamor. He had been locked in a lethal chamber. The gas was admitted. In a few minutes, he was dead. He was found lying forward on his face where he had fallen from his knees. The international government of the world announced the capture and execution. The work of 1,000 years is now at an end, it declared in its exultant bulletin. The day of the announcement was a day of great rejoicing all over the earth. The IGW, as the international government of the world was known, declared a half holiday for all workers. Great effigies of Christ on the cross were burned at all the subcapitals of the world. While the crosses flamed, the multitudes paraded and sang. It was the first time in a century that singing had been allowed. The work of extermination was over. It was a strange world that witnessed this day of jubilation. The peoples of the whole earth had become slaves of a few masters. They had had been herded into vast industrial centers, great mountains of stone and steel, banding round the earth like mountain chains, rising like huge wens, that is, cysts, on the face of the globe. But these men and women were not ordinary slaves. They were creatures of the machinery of a mechanical life, interiors of the machines they operated, subsidiary attachments to the monsters of a new age. The fantasy of the philosopher had come true. Machines had become superior to men. Men were not mere automatons. They were minor automatons, servants of a mechanical state. The masters of the IGW were the sons of the masters who had established the state. Their sires had done their work with brutal and consummate efficiency. All rebellious races had been exterminated. All people unsuited for slavery, primarily Latins and Celts, were segregated and slain. Only the stolid, unimaginative, automatic races, dominantly Nordic, were preserved. The days of the ecstatic, passionate, beauty-loving, liberty-seeking peoples was, as was early predicted, came to a close. The sluggish, frigid races had survived. The founders of the world state had prepared carefully for centuries. It was a long, difficult work to concentrate control of all fuel, food, arms, and transportation into the hands of 6 men. It was a chemist who, by a master stroke of strategy, finally perfected the consolidation. All agriculture and horticulture on Earth were destroyed by a gas that obliterated 1,000 square miles of forest in an hour. All fields, farmlands, gardens, and woodlands, from the great wheat areas of Russia to the forest expanses of South America, were turned into a fine powder that lay like a mist along the earth for days and then disappeared. When the work was complete, the earth was as bare almost as if it had been when the primeval glaciers withdrew their icy crust and first left the earth bare and bald beneath the sun. No fruit or flower or grain or vegetable showed itself, and none was allowed to show itself. The cultivation of any food growth was punishable by life imprisonment in the mines and the bowels of the earth. The cultivation of any decorative growth, flower, or tree, or vine was punishable by death. The few thousand inhabitants of the world who had not been corralled into the huge black industrial fortresses came across the dusty levels and valleys seeking admittance. They were counted, given numbers, and assigned residential vaults. At first, people stared at these sun-brown slaves from the fields. They ill-matched the white faces of the vault dwellers, but soon they lost their sunlight and became white as their fellows and as characterless as the numbers on their backs. No one had names. Individuals were known by numbers, and numbers only. There were no families. When children were born, they were taken to be bred, that is, raised, by the IGW in central vaults maintained for the purpose. If a child showed imagination, or fire, or spirit, or brilliancy, or any non-Nordic trait, he was destroyed. The multitudes except everybody except the masters and their large families directing engineers, lived in steel chambers and enormous cabinets that were on the average 1,000 feet high. These cabinets were like great filing cases. Each chamber was the same size as every other and was fitted with the same steel furniture, had the same bare walls. The chambers differed only in numbers. No one wanted to revolt. The lives the slaves lived were mechanical, almost to unconsciousness. It was an existence that suited their racial type. But had some freak appeared, some heroic soul with a love of liberty, he would have been helpless. The master stroke of the chemist had made revolt unachievable. It was a perfect servile state. No one wanted to revolt, and if anyone had wanted to revolt, it would have been impossible. Perfect slavery was assured in this manner. The only food obtainable was liquid that was furnished through pipes, as was water from a central reservoir. This liquid was of two kinds, a dark fluid that had lubricating qualities, and a light fluid that had sustaining and fuelizing qualities. The formulae for these two fluids were guarded with a secrecy that precluded even an attempt at discovery. The chemist who evolved the formulae was killed immediately after final tests had proved their efficacy for the commonweal. A huge statue was forthwith erected in his memory. The King of Kings, that is, the Master of Masters, alone knew the formulae. Anyone who made the least query regarding them was slain. The IGW forbade curiosity with the same rigor that it forbade laughter. There was little need for prohibition in either case. When number 862,337, say, arose at dawn, he went to a metal sink riveted to the wall. Over the sink were three pipes. One was water, one was the dark fluid, and one was the light fluid. Before washing, he took a glass of the dark fluid. After washing, he took a glass of the light fluid. These two glasses were sufficient to provide him with sustenance until noon. At noon, he took 2 more glasses. At night, 2 more glasses, and so on, day and night, until he died. The slaves, I imagine, considered it a well-balanced diet. The two fluids were very much like oil and gasoline that were once used in automobiles. The airplanes that furnished the only transportation for the IGW used these two liquids for lubrication and fuel. When a driver left in the morning, he took the same food he gave his engine. They both worked in pretty much the same way. Each industrial center was provided with a towering tank that served as a filling station. Each early morning would find a flock of airplanes buzzing around the top of the tank like flies over a dead fish. If any section of the IGW empire ever became the least stubborn, not to say rebellious, these antiquated and Christian weaknesses could be quickly cured by shutting off the liquid food supply from the central reservoir. The slaves would immediately be without fuel or lubricant. It was a simple system. Now, it so happened, said Blue, after he had described the IGW to me, that like all mundane achievements, the IGW had an imperfection. Even this kingdom of the Antichrist, perfect as it was, had a weak point. And so, like all things mundane, it came to an end. The great capital of the IGW was SC number 1, in what was once known as New York. Blue called it New York, and I shall. It's easier to say, for one thing, and for another, even such as it is, it leaves a more Christian taste on the tongue. The weak point in the IGW was a small, thin-faced, wiry man who lived in a vault in New York. His number was 2,757,311. But Blue called him White for Christian reasons. White was one of the last of the sun-browned country dwellers to come in after all the vegetative life on Earth had been destroyed. He had come with a strange group of people from one of the outermost places. The examiners at the gate had hesitated to let him enter. He had a light in his eyes, and it was well known that no genuine IGW slaves had light in their eyes. They thought at first that he might have been a throwback to some destroyed race, but he had the proper credentials. They watched him carefully. In a few months, he began to look like his fellow slaves, but the resemblance was only on the surface, said Blue, for his brain was afire and his heart bled. White proved to be a good slave. He kept step. He walked with head bowed. He made no human noise that might soften the metallic din of the center. Winter came and went. White was beyond suspicion. But with the coming of spring, he cast surreptitious glances sunward. At night, he would look out through the ventilator at the stars. On rest day afternoon, he would go over to the hills across the western river. His fellow slaves could not understand his trips. Why should he go over there, they would say to themselves, when he could sit all day in the dark in his vault and stare at the floor? But that was the extent of their inquiry. Thought was too much of an effort for them. Their sluggish minds would return with their eyes to the floor. White had a purpose to the hills. He liked the open and sunlight, though none of his fellows would believe it. But he had his eye out for something. One warm afternoon, he found it in a distant valley, miles from men, a small patch of brown, moist earth. He knelt down reverently by it and made a sign of a cross on himself, touching his forehead and breast and shoulders with the first two fingers of his right hand. After a long while on his knees, he arose and made a sign of a cross in the air over the plot, murmuring as he did so. Then, with a glance at the airplanes that hummed by high overhead, he took a little sack quickly from his breast and sprinkled its contents over the moist earth. I shall bring God back to earth, White told the silences beyond the western river. Then he returned to vault number 2,757,311. To be continued.
Okay, well, that's very nice, Paula, and you read it perfectly.
Well, not perfectly, but good enough.
Were you a thespian in college? Did you join the group that put on plays?
Yes, but I was a minor player.
Well, I was too.
But I think my daughter got the gene. She's really into theater.
Oh, is she?
She's very dramatic.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, I would say you have a talent in that area. Anyway, would you like to see what people have to say?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, we will take a look at the chat, and if any of you have questions for Paula or about the story or about the author, we will answer your questions, hopefully. Adam and Nancy are here. Lena Kay says it's an interesting picture. I think they're talking about the eye picture, Paula. So I do think that was a better choice. I changed it per your direction, and I think it is much better.
And I bow to your acquiescence.
Snowland checks in. So does Pirate Heart. Rosary WMD is here. Adam and Nancy says this is going to be very interesting. Thanks for doing this, Paula and Mr. T. Adam and Nancy say 1964. I don't know what they... Oh, that was when he was born or died. That was when he died, right?
Yes, thank you, Adam and Nancy. And I will be subbing for you on December 3 and 4 if you didn't get the word.
Yeah, I think I told him. Okay, very good. Thanks, Paula. Let's see. Joyce Adcock is here. Sean Slee is here. Ellie Hansack says, hi, Mr. Tabley. Billy Manners here says, Paula has such a pleasant voice. And it's nice to see you again, Mr. Tapley. Well, we're glad you're here, Billy. Ellie Hansack says, what a revelation of the future, Paula. Cannot comprehend it. It is hard to believe it will come to this in the age of the Antichrist. Well, that's one of the reasons I asked Paula to go ahead with this proposal of hers, because I do think it's a prophetic book, at least what Paula has read so far. And it's I think it is. I mean, it might be an exaggeration, but it's basically it's going to be that. And by the way, I think I disagree with one of your pronunciations, Paula.
Yikes.
I would say automaton.
What did I say?
Automaton or something. I forgot what you said. In other words, everyone is an automaton. They are people become what?
Automatons?
That's the way I would pronounce it. Automaton.
Oh,
I'm not sure.
Said it wrong.
Pardon
Okay.
me?
Well, there's no problem because it doesn't get repeated in part 2, so I'm off.
No, but you like to correct me on pronunciation, and I'm. You corrected me on what was the one word you corrected me on?
Perusia.
Oh yeah, Perusia, right? Well, I now pronounce it the way you say to pronounce it. So
And you know what? I never did explain how I happen to know the pronunciation. There used to be a printing company in our town, and they were called Perusia Press.
Oh.
Because they were Christian.
No kidding. Okay, very good. Well, you can check that out. I'm not sure if automaton is correct, and there could very well be more than one pronunciation. In any event. So I think Ellie Hansack is right. What a revelation of the future. Adam and Nancy have one word for it. Wow. Carolyn Couch says this book sounds prophetic. Yikes, the Nazis are back. Well, that's exactly. The Nazis, Hitler was a prefigure of the Antichrist, no doubt about it. And the Nazi regime is a prefigure of the one world government, no doubt about it. Okay.
And we're heading there with the one world religion right around the corner.
Well, the one world religion is developing right now in the Vatican. There's no doubt of that in my mind. As Mary prophesied at La Salette, Rome will lose the faith, and they have. Okay, let's see. Shepherd's Boy says, agreed. Thank you, Paula and Mr. Tapley. Peter Perrine says, appeal to heaven. Carolyn Couch says, Paula, you should be a reader for audiobooks. Lovely voice. If you don't finish this book for us, I'm going to buy it. You see? So you started something, Paula. You may have to read the whole book now.
Well, I'm doing part 1 and part 2, so people can buy it if they so choose.
Where does this chapter come in the book? If it's near the beginning, people are going to want you to read the whole book.
It's near the beginning.
Oh, okay. See, you've started something now.
But the whole book is beautiful because it does. It's this very enigmatic figure, Mr. Blue, and he's really he's mysterious, but he's also very attractive. And you just kind of fall in love with him, but you're not sure you want to follow in his steps because he's so radical.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, let's continue with what people are saying here. Oh,
Adam and Nancy's.
Oh yeah, Adam
Thanking
and
me
Nancy.
for
I guess that's the last comment. Thank you, Paula, so much for subbing out for us. Okay, that's great. Paula's going to help out. I think December 3rd and 4th with praying the Rosary, which we do every morning. For those of you who may not be aware of that, on this channel we do a live stream Rosary, and this is just one of the channels that we have because Pietà Rosary channel does a live stream Rosary every night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So I think that's...
Mr. Tapley, did you happen to catch last night on Sam's channel, Pietà Rosary, that I believe it was Chronic Sinner that had a dream, and he described his dream, and in it he said that he dreamt that he was seeing through the eyes of a Jew as they were quickly packing up to escape the Nazis. And he felt how it will be very much like those who will need to have bug-out bags if their residence is not yet or will be a refuge. And so if you didn't catch that, you might want to listen to that.
I will. I had the Rosary on and I prayed the Rosary. And then during the chat afterwards, I went out to the kitchen, so I must have missed him talking about that. So, yeah, I will. I will replay it. That sounds interesting.
It's worth it.
In fact, I think there will be more. Well, I know there'll be more. Jesus said that, or no, it's in the I think the Old Testament that in the end times the Holy Spirit would be poured out on all flesh. So we're going to have more and more people who receive dreams, just like Chronic Sinner. People who have never had dreams like this. In fact, right now I'm thinking of adding a person and reading that person's dreams, just like I do Snowlands. So.
Oh, that'll be interesting. And because there's a scripture too that's I think you had quoted it just the other day that God doesn't do anything without telling us first.
No, that's right. That's the Bible says that. God does nothing, but he reveals it first through his prophets, which is quite an interesting statement from the Bible, but it's true. And I was going to think of something else I was going to say, but I think that's it, Paula. Can you think of anything else? Have we covered all topics?
Tune in for tomorrow evening.
Okay. Very good.
At 6:30 p.m.
6:15
for part 2.
6:15.
Do not miss it.
You said 6:30. Do you know you just said 6:30?
I said 6:15.
No, you didn't. You said 6:30.
Well, I beg your pardon for a senior moment.
Now you got me questioning. Maybe you did say 6:15. Maybe it's my senior moment.
You know what? My problem is, my husband, he has the mind of a steel trap. He remembers details. That's not me. I remember the gist of things, and then I move on. So even when I pray the Rosary, I'll be like, did we already do the Our Father? I don't remember.
Yeah,
I move on. I'm already in the future.
Yes, and our family.
6:30, Carolyn Couch says.
Yeah, see, I thought you said 6:30. No problem. That way we brought it to people's attention more. This way we talk back and forth, and see now they won't forget it. Okay, Paul, I think that's it. No more comments.
Well, thank you again, kind sir.
Okay, you're very welcome, and we'll see you tomorrow. Okay.
I love you all. God bless.
Bye now.
Goodbye.
Bye. Okay, thank you, Paula, and I will say good night also to everyone. And as I say, Sam Fisher is up in a little over an hour from now with a live stream on his channel. I will be back tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. for a live stream on this channel. And then again tomorrow afternoon at 6:15, Paula will do part 2 of The Last Christian. Until I do see all of you again, may God bless all of you, and may all of you have a very blessed